Alan is a certified broke bozo and an idiot loser who fumbled his final exam for his dream job at the royal court and can't even pay for his train. But one day, a rich noble family decides this budget wizard is good enough to tutor their useless daughter, who can't even cast a single spell. While traveling north by train, Alan writes to his girlfriend Lydia, announcing his exile after flunking the royal mage exam like a chump. He remembers how shocked his professor was, especially since Alan had no clue why he failed, probably because he didn't kiss the exam's magical ass hard enough. With no money to return home, Alan was about to enter his sad boy arc. The professor praised his selflessness for supporting his family, but urged him to think of his own future too. He then offered Alan a temporary, well-paid tutoring job. His old friend, Duke Howard, needed someone to teach his daughter, Tina, until spring. Surprised but grateful, Alan accepted. The professor made the arrangements, calling Alan the brightest student he'd ever had. Alan, recalling his last tutoring gift for a noble girl, worried this might be similar. The professor handed him a first-class train ticket, and Alan immediately smelled side quest energy. Snapping back to the present, Alan finishes his letter as the train pulls into a freezing northern city, where he begins his search for Duke Howard's mansion. Graham, Duke Howard's head butler, welcomes Alan alongside Ellie, a maid in training. After introductions, they head to the carriage. Graham jokingly suggests Ellie sit on Alan's lap due to limited space, flustering her. Alan declines, but Ellie insists she's fine with it and they board. Alan notices the ribbon on Ellie's head and thick snowfall outside. Graham explains they'll be indoors for days due to the cold. Seeing Ellie shiver, Alan lends her his scarf and casts a warming spell, impressing her. At the mansion, Ellie struggles to get out of the carriage, so Alan carries her, further embarrassing her. He then apologizes to Her Highness, revealing he figured out she's the Duke's daughter based on her outfit and behavior. Flustered, Ellie runs off. Graham admits she wanted to greet Alan personally and apologizes. Inside, the house is warm, and the real maid, also named Ellie, rushes over, nearly trips, but Alan catches her. Graham scolds her for running again. Alan isn't upset, he's actually relieved she's okay and lightly teases her, making her flustered. Graham thinks Alan matches the professor's description. When Alan asks what was said, Graham replies the professor called him unnatural with young girls. Alan denies it, saying he's just used to being around kids. He then visits Duke Howard's office, thanks him for the job, and introduces himself. Howard welcomes him, saying the professor spoke highly of him and that he's eager to see what Alan can do. Alan is stunned to learn he's there to train Tina, Howard's daughter, for the Royal Academy. Howard quickly clarifies he actually wants Alan to talk Tina out of attending. He explains the Howard family once ruled the northern lands as one of the 4 great ducal houses, loyal to the crown for generations. But after his wife died, he raised his daughters alone. The eldest, Stella, got into the academy, but he doubts she'll uphold the family's magical legacy. Tina, on the other hand, has mana, but can't cast any spells, and even experts don't know why. Alan is surprised, but Howard insists that Tina's sense of duty makes her fit to study magic and combat, despite other possible futures. Alan was curious about the paths ahead, but Howard insisted he see for himself. They entered the flower room, where Tina had been experimenting with cultivation techniques from her late wife's books. Howard considered her research valuable to the duchy and encouraged her to continue. Alan began to grasp the professor's intentions, but Howard emphasized Tina had to find her own path and master magic before entering the Royal Academy. He assured Alan he would support her and made a promise. Alan noted she had mana but couldn't use magic, which intrigued him. At dinner, Howard celebrated Alan's arrival and explained that servants dined together as a tradition. Alan appreciated this. Tina and Ellie joined them and Howard introduced them. Alan mentioned he met Ellie during a freezing carriage ride, which flustered Tina while Ellie was confused. Tina eagerly asked if she could learn many things. Later, Howard requested Alan watch over Ellie, revealing she was Groan's granddaughter and a descendant of the Walker family, longtime retainers of the Howards. Graham approved. Alan suspected they wanted Ellie in the Royal Academy too, but she admitted she lacked magic talent and feared being a burden. When asked what she wanted, she simply said she'd do whatever was expected of her. Alan asked again, "Do you want to join the Royal Academy?" Ellie answered that of course she did. She wanted to stay by Tina's side as her personal maid. Alan was excited to teach her. Soon a black cat named Anko showed up, said to belong to the professor who'd recommended him, which impressed them. The next day, Alan visited Tina's room, but she told him to drop the formalities and just call her Tina. She also asked him to always be honest, even if it hurt. Alan agreed and warned he wouldn't sugarcoat things. Before their lessons, he gave her a written test and explained the entrance exam had 3 parts: written, interview, and magic. Though magic was key, he needed to check her academic level first. Tina asked if the written test changed yearly and mentioned hearing how hard it was. Alan explained the school reused question types from decades of archives that no one seemed to notice. He handed her a test and asked her to try. That night in his room, Alan graded it and was surprised. Tina's intellect rivaled Lydia, a former student who had once overwhelmed him. Lydia was the Duke of Leinster's daughter, a swordmaster, top graduate, and Phoenix spell wielder. Academically, Tina was on par. The next day in the study room, he returned her test, and she smiled she passed. Alan told Tina she was ready for the written exam and might even top it. She thanked him, but he wanted to shorten the prep time and shift to hands-on magic right away, saying she wouldn't know her limits unless she tried. Tina had tried and failed before, saying she let down many teachers. Alan understood. He'd recently felt the same. Tina was surprised since her professor praised Alan and said Lady Lydia became renowned thanks to him. But Alan said people only talked about him because he put up with Lydia's mood swings and his mana had dropped from last year. The university accepted him thinking he could handle her, not because of skill. He knew the Royal Academy was brutal, with half the students failing to graduate on time. Before they started, he asked if Tina truly wanted to attend or just felt obligated. She replied it was out of love for plants. Since childhood, she'd admired legendary spells from a storybook her mother read. Alan said such magic no longer existed, but he'd do all he could to help if she stayed determined. Tina thanked him for believing in her. Just then, Ellie walked over with candles and nearly tripped again, but Alan caught her and saved the candles with magic. Tina, irritated by how close Alan and Ellie were, told him to back off. As class began, Alan asked about the basic elements of magic. Tina explained there were 7, like fire, water, and wind, and each person was naturally aligned with one affecting their strengths. When Alan asked about the Howard family's affinity, Tina said it was likely water and wind, which could be combined into ice. Alan then questioned the concept of harmony, mentioning a spell he used in the carriage that mixed water, wind, and fire, elements that shouldn't work together if the theory were true. He challenged Tina to think beyond set affinities and try using all 7 elements on the candles. He asked Ellie which elements she could use, and she managed to light one candle with fire, then succeeded again with wind, impressing Alan. He praised her and predicted she could ace the entrance exam, which shocked her. Then Tina tried, but her spell didn't work, though Alan sensed her mana. He told her not to apologize, he just needed to understand what was wrong. To demonstrate, he lit all the candles in various colors, leaving them both amazed. Meanwhile, at Lydia's home, she read Alan's letter saying he'd stay at the Howard estate until spring and hoped she'd wish him luck in proving himself. Alan kept teaching them magic and asked why humans could use it. Tina said it was thanks to mana and years of study. Alan gazed out and said that while science had progressed and more people used magic, fewer could cast high-level spells. Noble houses were known for powerful spells like Firebird and Ice Wolf, but only a few could still perform them, and their strength was fading. Tina, who had lived through centuries of magical reform, wondered if all their efforts were pointless. Alan said no, it was just that they traded depth for numbers. He believed humans could use magic thanks to invisible elemental spirits. Tina disagreed, saying studies proved otherwise, like how fire spells didn't get stronger near volcanoes. But Alan questioned those results since they couldn't measure spirits in the first place, though he admitted Tina knew more. She thought he was being sly. Alan then said spirits didn't care about elements, but most magic only called on one. He asked, would you enjoy doing the same thing forever if you were a spirit? They said no, so he tried rewriting spells to leave space for change and told them to try too. When he asked Ellie to combine fire and wind, she failed at first and felt useless. But Alan encouraged her to relax and try again. And she finally pulled it off, feeling proud even if it was a small step. Then it was Tina's turn. She tried casting a spell but failed twice, leaving her discouraged. That night, Alan went to the library and was stunned by the massive collection. While he searched for something that might help Tina, she arrived with her maid, who warned her not to stay too long. Tina picked out a book, and her maid commented she resembled her mother, who also loved books, but unlike her, Tina couldn't use magic. The maid brought up Tina's new teacher, noting his darker aura, but recalled Tina defending his kindness in the carriage. Alan overheard everything. After Tina left, the maid noticed him and introduced herself as Shelley, the head maid. She asked Alan for help. Tina, she explained, was smart and hardworking, but past tutors abandoned her due to her lack of magic, leaving her hurt yet still determined to enter the Royal Academy. Shelley knew Tina looked up to Alan and Lydia and hoped he'd support her. Alan assured her he would. The next day, Tina got upset, thinking Alan and Ellie went out together, but he clarified he'd just been picking vegetables with Ellie. Ellie, nervous about Tina's reaction, asked how she would hang out with Alan alone. She then admitted she liked Alan a lot, which surprised but pleased Tina. Ellie said she loved him after her grandparents and herself, which made Alan laugh. He joked they acted like sisters, though yes, Tina was the older one, boosting her ego. In truth, Ellie was a year older, but Tina never admitted she acted like it, frustrating Ellie, who threatened not to let her share the bed during storms. Alan laughed again and both girls scolded him. During training, Alan held Ellie's hand to help her feel her mana. She felt warmth and energy, and he told her it was dark mana. She failed to cast a spell, but Alan reassured her it was normal. Tina also couldn't use magic, and Alan encouraged her to try another approach. He then summoned a cat, impressing them both. When they both wanted to touch it, Alan summoned another so they'd each have one, making them happy. Later that day, Graham gave Alan a letter. Thinking it was from Lydia, he opened it and found an angry message asking why he went to Howard. She told him he should have asked her for help if he needed a job. She'd met Tina a few times, understood the situation, and though she thought success was unlikely, she still believed he might pull through. Lydia warned him not to rely on past experiences and scolded him for hiding something about the Royal Mage test. She said she'd be at the Royal Academy exam, and if he ran, she'd hunt him down and destroy him. Then she asked him to send her weekly letters. After Alan finished reading, they went to the training room. Tina asked what Lydia wanted, and Alan said she was mad he hadn't written. Ellie saw Lydia's care as meaningful, while Tina believed Lydia just missed him. Alan didn't think it was that sweet. Training resumed, Ellie managed to use magic, but Tina failed again. Then Alan saw an ice plane fly upward, which shocked him. He returned to the library, convinced Tina's spells were close to working. If modern books failed, he checked the old ones. While searching, he noticed a strange symbol, then left and someone was waiting. They went to her room, she gave him a drink, and he called her Miss Ellie, which annoyed her. She told him to drop the formalities and asked if it was just a training thing. When she realized he was lying, she made him say her name again and relaxed once he did. She told Alan to always call her that, though he thought letting a strange man into her room at night was risky. She didn't mind. She mentioned her grandparents recently called, expressed their love, and hugged her tight, which shocked her. They'd apparently been talking about her. Alan gently reminded her of the talent he and Shelley had once discussed, though he struggled to make proper use of it himself. He encouraged her to tell her family how much they meant to her, since their support was her greatest strength. Shifting back, Alan told Ellie his own family had been there for him. Ellie then shared that her father died when she was young and she came to live with the Howards. She remembered arriving, snow falling, and a girl chasing after her. Tina, who had recently lost her mother, was also dealing with fear. Both girls were alike, but Tina, the Walker Harris, felt her efforts fell flat. She had been overtaken by Ellie at the academy and feared she'd be left behind. Trying to forge her own way, she asked Mr. Howard to let her join the Royal Academy. Alan saw her request as bold and admired her potential. He told her to believe in herself, which lifted her spirits. The next day, Ellie displayed impressive magic, which discouraged Tina. Alan then asked about Ellie's control over the other elements, but she admitted she feared lightning and light. Still, with Anko's help in the dark, she felt she might master them soon. Alan asked Tina to try casting a spell, but she failed completely. Confused, she wondered why, but Alan assured them they'd just try another formula. He later told Howard that Tina's mana reserves were massive, though he couldn't promise she passed the exam. Howard thought about discouraging her, but Alan insisted it would be wrong if she truly wanted to join, noting her academic strength could still get her in. Howard understood but feared she faced scorn at the academy as a noble without magic. He didn't want her to suffer like he had. He asked Alan to act if things didn't improve. Though reluctant, Alan agreed. Back in training, Tina kept failing. Alan offered to help and encouraged her to keep trying. That night, he stayed up analyzing her formula but found no issues. The next morning, Tina woke to find him sleeping near her with a book. When she asked if he'd read it for her, he denied it, but she saw through the lie. He'd skipped breakfast and read late into the night to support her. She asked how many spells he practiced with her and how often he helped her train. Alan told her not to worry, he loved studying magic. Realizing he wasn't angry, Tina apologized, feeling crushed by her failures. In tears, she confessed she loved and admired him, and Ellie too, and how his praise made her reflect on her own guilt. In that moment, her power suddenly erupted with freezing energy, nearly injuring Alan. Ellie rushed in, but he told her not to interfere. Alan told Ellie to fetch Mr. Graham and tried to stop the ice storm with magic, but failed, choked by the pressure. Reluctantly, he called out to Tina, asking if she could hear him. Tina, trapped behind the ice, listened to his voice in confusion. Alan warned that his power was surging wildly and would soon kill him. She asked what to do. He said he'd link their energy, even though it was risky and uncomfortable, and asked for her permission. Once connected, Alan searched for her through the link and sensed an immense mana within her, possibly greater than Lydia's. He then heard Tina blaming herself, feeling useless and powerless. Her emotions overwhelmed him just as an ice dragon formed behind her, showing she was trying to help. Alan took his chance, summoned a firebird, and melted the ice, revealing Tina. He ran to her and hugged her, relieved. As the dragon faded, it said Alan had met the final key, leaving him confused. He asked Tina if she heard anything, but she only mentioned feeling odd from their link. Realizing they were still connected, Alan ended the bond and was about to go to Ellie, but Tina asked him to stay and hold her, saying he was her only teacher. Alan stayed. Ellie soon arrived with Graham to check on Alan and Tina. She was glad for Tina, while Alan recalled Leah's warning not to repeat this with anyone else and thought he needed a good excuse. He nearly fainted, but Graham caught him. In Alan's room, he and Tina were concerned. Ellie left to get tea. Tina asked if his condition was tied to their bond. Alan said not to worry, but admitted bonding made him share thoughts and feelings. Tina got upset, saying she heard him call her Princess Poison again and wanted an answer. Alan tried shifting focus, explaining he could influence the mana of those he bonded with and that reconnecting later was easy. When Tina asked if he'd done it before, he said yes, with his sister Karen and with Lydia when he had no other choice. He warned it was risky, since it let him use someone else's energy, and asked her to keep it secret, even from Ellie. Later, as night came, they moved to a new magic training area. Alan, impressed, asked Tina to test her power there. Tina lit the candles, releasing a surge of power that left everyone stunned. Alan suspected the dragon inside her no longer interfered and that their magical bond may have shifted some control to her. He praised her and said it was time to learn how to manage that strength. Overwhelmed, Tina hugged him in tears, grateful she could finally use magic. Alan reassured her and called her amazing. Ellie also cried with joy and thanked Tina. Alan believed a bit more training would let Tina fully master her magic, and then they'd both be ready for the Royal Academy. He planned to tell Walter, but Graham reminded him Walter was still away. Alan missed sharing the news and wrote a letter to the professor. Later, the professor received it, just as one of Alan's friends visited. Joking about Alan's frequent debt letters, they read it together. They reported Tina's breakthrough and urgently requested military-grade ice-resistant scrolls before she froze herself. Alan's friend laughed, but the professor knew fulfilling the request wouldn't be easy. Who would have thought Alan would manage to show off the little princess's power? It was just like him. Back in his room, he kept flipping through books with no luck until one showed a familiar symbol, making him think back. In training, Alan asked Ellie to light candles with dark magic. She failed at first, but he encouraged her to focus and recall how she felt touching Anko. That helped her succeed, which lifted Alan's spirits. He then had Tina try. She produced a huge burst of magic, and he told her to mentally control it. Since Ellie was progressing well, Alan suggested they move to combat training, which made Tina jealous. Ellie appreciated Alan's kindness, but Tina demanded the same. Alan argued magic training didn't allow for softness and scolded Tina for nearly destroying the ceiling. Tina fired back, saying his lack of attention was the problem. That reminded Alan of someone, Lydia, who hadn't written in a while. Lost in thought, Tina snapped him out of it, and both girls pushed him to share what was on his mind. Alan remembered Graham once saying he was good with young women, which he quickly denied. Then Ellie began firing magic at Graham, who dodged flawlessly. Alan was surprised by Graham's precision, and Tina explained that the walkers trained daily to improve their service. Graham then attacked, but Ellie blocked every move, making Alan proud. He told Tina it was her turn. She lit the candles and nearly controlled her power, though the task unnerved her. Later in Graham's room, he praised Tina's growth and thanked Alan, but Alan credited their efforts. When Alan asked about Walter, Graham said he was busy, but Alan suspected he was avoiding them. Alan asked how Walter felt about Tina learning magic, and Graham answered all he could. Alan then brought up books with matching marks and asked Graham who owned them, but he didn't know. Back in his room, Alan read the marked books, thinking Tina's power might be linked. He recalled the dragon's words about a key and wondered if Tina was the one, not him. Then Tina and Ellie came in. Tina claimed Ellie couldn't sleep, but Ellie exposed the truth. It was Tina who was scared of her book. Alan told them to head to bed so their training wouldn't suffer, but they refused and stayed in his room. He offered them warm drinks, which made them admire him even more. Asking for silence to continue his research, Alan soon realized all books with the same symbol shared a link. Turning around, he saw Tina and Ellie asleep, which deepened his resolve to help them enter the Royal Academy. Later in the training hall, Graham informed Alan that Walter wanted to speak. Alan quickly agreed and told the girls to rest. At Walter's office, Walter revealed Tina wouldn't be allowed to take the entrance exam. Alan disagreed, insisting Tina would excel. Walter claimed the matter was out of his hands and didn't want Tina to be a burden, angering Alan. He argued that Tina's mother, Princess Rosa, had faith in her daughter's magic potential. Alan showed him books on ice magic, all bearing Rosa's mark as proof. Shocked, Walter reconsidered. Alan apologized for being blunt, but Walter told him to stand tall, touched by his kindness. Though hesitant, Walter agreed on one condition. Back in the hall, Alan told the girls that passing the final test would earn them a shot at the academy. Tina asked what the test was. Alan explained Walter would appoint a strong mage to fight in his place. The girls were scared, but Alan reassured them, saying he believed in them and was proud, leaving them flustered but deeply thankful. The episode opens with Alan training the girls, focusing especially on the maid, who displayed remarkable strength. They surrounded him and set a trap, but he avoided it effortlessly. Until Tina cleverly froze his foot. Alan acknowledged their progress and was pleased, though he reminded them it wouldn't be that easy to defeat him. He activated his fog magic, blinding their vision, then outsmarted and beat them in that round. He praised their skills and expressed genuine pride, but emphasized they still had much to learn. For their final challenge, they would face a mage selected personally by the elite, someone who might unleash advanced magic. Alan urged them to give it their all, especially Tina, who needed to keep refining her control. With limited time before the exam, he promised to teach them everything they needed. He then dismissed them for the day. Later, the girls relaxed in a hot bath, chatting about Alan, his strength, his dedication, and how they'd one day join the Royal Academy with the power he helped them gain. Suddenly, Ellie became lightheaded. Alan swiftly treated her and warned her not to linger too long in the bath, joking that a spirit or demon might take advantage, something he used to tell his sister Karen, who always fussed over her hair. Karen, now a student at the academy, would be their senior. Back in training, Ellie launched herself at Alan using her powers, but he blocked her effortlessly. Tina unleashed a fierce ice spell, launching a rapid volley like a 20mm multi-shot weapon. He struggled to avoid the unpredictable blasts, then activated his intensify ability and threw a flashbang, but the barrage didn't stop. Their deal was clear. If even one shot landed, they'd win. In the end, Tina landed a hit and he acknowledged their victory. Though they were eager to keep going, he stopped them, praising their effort and reminding them the final test was tomorrow. They needed rest. The scene shifted to Alan alone in the library, flipping through a book, seemingly searching for something. His mind drifted to the bird's cryptic words from earlier as he climbed the tower. The meaning still eluded him, and he pondered it when he sensed someone behind him. Turning, he saw Tina. She had come because she couldn't sleep, hoping a visit to her plants would cheer her up. Spotting the light from the library, she guessed Alan was there and decided to visit. She then asked if failing tomorrow would mean she couldn't go to the royal capital. Alan reassured her, saying he truly believed she and Ellie would succeed. Tina went on to share a childhood memory, how she used to beg her mother to read her a picture book, captivated by the powerful spells cast by legendary heroes. Alan recalled the images from the book: an elemental lion wreathed in flames, a small bird of storms, and the glacial crane, a creature said to resemble a now-extinct bird with the power to freeze all it touched. He considered Dana's words as she admitted she had never shared this with anyone else and had grown deeply attached to him. Alan, touched by her honesty, thanked her and showed her a book, pointing out how many references appeared near the basic ice spell formulas. Every final page bore the same royal emblem. Though he had never met her mother, Alan could tell from the notes she left behind how much she cared about future generations. The very formula he was teaching Dana came from those notes, modified with his own adjustments. Overwhelmed, Dana began to cry and embraced him. Alan gently comforted her, assuring her she would pass the test and earn a place at the Royal Academy. Strengthened by his words, she promised herself she would succeed. The following morning, Tina and her maid arrived for the exam. Alan encouraged them to stay calm and focused. Upon entering the exam grounds, they were met by the head maid, who led them inside and handed Tina a staff. It had once belonged to Lady Rosa, who had entrusted it to her, with instructions to pass it on once Tina had learned magic. The head maid tearfully apologized for the delay, but felt relieved to complete her final duty. Afterward, they traveled to the arranged site, where a man revealed their challenger, a masked individual. Alan quietly wondered if this man was Tina's father, unsettled by the magic concealing his identity. The figure announced that to earn entrance to the academy, they had to defeat him with their full power, assuring them his barrier could handle it. The battle began swiftly, with Ellie and Tina launching synchronized elemental attacks, impressing the man with their precision. Tina unleashed a flurry of spells, but he remained unharmed and struck back. Ellie protected her, and together they countered, pushing him back. He responded with twin ice pillars, but instead of reacting recklessly, they remembered their training and merged their magic to defend. Alan watched with pride, noting Tina using techniques beyond what he had taught, a clear sign they were ready for the Royal Academy. Tina demanded his surrender, and though surprised by their progress, the man admitted he hadn't expected them to advance this far. Ellie insisted he yield without condition, but he refused, replying he'd only answer with full force before casting a powerful spell. As the girls formed a barrier, Alan warned spectators to retreat and asked Ellie's grandfather to act as referee, trusting his judgment. The man mocked them for not striking earlier, blaming their teacher, and used a spell Tina thought only her father knew. The girls hesitated until Ellie reminded them they were Alan's students and wouldn't give up. Reinvigorated, Tina stood firm. Then the enemy summoned the snowstorm wolf, a signature spell Alan recognized from the Howard ducal house. He ordered high-grade barriers and a backup shield sent to the professor, but as he rushed forward, the girls stopped him, asking for his faith. Ellie, recalling Alan's belief in her dual magic potential, finally achieved it with Tina's support. A powerful aura radiates from them as Tina attacks the wolf, but their opponent remains unimpressed. He melts the ice, trapping the beast, releasing it again, and warns that if they wish to fight back, they must cast a spell on it themselves. The wolf lunges, knocking the girls down, though they remain unhurt. Alan urges Tina to remember the snowstorm wolf formula she once saw. Although she never practiced it, he insists she try. But nervous, Tina is encouraged by his confidence in her. He asks Ellie to assist, and together, the girls channel a powerful spell at their foe. The wolf attempts to charge them, but fails repeatedly. They then release a surge of mana that destroys the wolf and shatters their opponent's mask. Victorious, they pass the test and earn the right to travel to the royal capital, with Alan joining them. He informs Lydia of the outcome, while Ellie bids farewell to her grandparents and Tina to her father. He praises their final exam, saying Tina reminded him of her mother Rosa and admits he was afraid of losing her. Tina embraces him and asks him to care for the plants while she's gone. Before they depart, her father entrusts Alan with their safety. Alan promises to protect them, and the train sets off toward the capital. Alan visited Lydia's home and was attacked from behind, but he blocked it and criticized the sneak attack. Lydia appeared, visibly furious, sarcastically thanked him for the tip, and demanded to know if we thought he was for keeping her waiting. Alan replied he wasn't late, though they hadn't met in a while, but admitted he should have arrived first. He reminded her that her magic didn't work on him and that he could dispel it with ease. Lydia warned him to stop talking or she'd cut him down. After she sat, Alan apologized. She asked what for, and he listed not telling her about the teaching job, not visiting sooner, and hiding why he failed the royal exam. Moved, Lydia asked him to hug her and not disappear again. He agreed, and as she hugged him tightly, she asked for his promise and forgiveness. He joked about being her servant, but apologized once more. Lydia's maid came with tea and quietly told Alan Lydia had stressed over picking her dress. Lydia overheard and scolded her. After the maid left, Lydia invited Alan to sit. He gave her a small gift, complimented her looks, and said she looked stunning. Blushing, she listened as he told her he had written to congratulate her on passing the Royal Magician exam and nearing graduation. Alan showed up at Lydia's graduation, saying he came at the professor's request, though he seemed uneasy. He asked if anyone had ever ranked second without landing a job, which caught Lydia off guard. She wondered if he'd keep teaching, but Alan just sipped his tea and said little. When she mentioned Tina learning magic, he said much had happened, but insisted there was nothing he was hiding. Tina's mana still needed analysis. Lydia then asked about the entrance test and whether Alan had faith in her. He believed Tina would rank first, followed by Ellie, though Lydia's sister Lynn might also place high. Tina had already cast an advanced spell right after learning magic, something only one other prodigy had done. Lydia said results would be out in a week and ordered Alan to visit daily. He agreed. Elsewhere, Walter read a letter and was stunned. Tina nearly broke records, placing first, and Ellie also passed. He praised Alan, but Alan credited the girls. Walter then offered Alan a tutoring job. Though thankful, Alan declined. Ellie asked why, and Walter guessed it was due to the capital. He assured Alan he didn't blame him for the Royal Magician exam. When Tina asked if he really took it, Alan admitted he had. Walter said Alan passed the written and interview stages but failed the practical, which shocked the girls. Tina's mana flared in anger. Walter revealed his opponent was Prince Gerard II, who provoked him with insults. Alan beat him even in swordplay, but the examiners refused to score him. Alan said he had no regrets. Walter asked if he was truly okay abandoning his dream. Alan revealed he was an orphan raised with love by the Wolf clan and couldn't ignore slights against them. He didn't want to drag those he cherished into trouble. Walter disagreed but reminded him that the Howard family still stood behind him. Alan thanked Walter genuinely. Tina then refused to accept things as they were and stormed off, unwilling to leave Alan. Later, he found her alone, asking if he truly intended to quit. Alan thought they'd manage without him, but Tina, in tears, disagreed. He said he'd resign but still help as their teacher. Just then, the professor arrived and told Alan he still had a job. Annoyed, Alan asked why he looked pleased. The professor said it was because Alan wouldn't have to leave and urged him to stay secretly as Tina's teacher. Alan asked if that was a threat, but the professor, wanting to keep Alan's talent, denied it. Alan suspected a setup, but the professor revealed Walter planned it and would explain. He gave Alan a rehire contract and asked Walter to include Tina. Alan was stunned. Meanwhile, Tina, seeming distracted, told Ellie she was fine, focused on her entrance speech. Her sister Stella soon arrived and Tina hugged her, having missed her over winter break. Stella had been busy with student council. Ellie asked if she was president and praised her. Tina asked about their dad, but Stella hadn't seen him. Stella congratulated Tina, impressed she placed first in magic, and wanted to thank Alan, whom she'd heard about from Tina's letters, even if he sounded strict. Tina said Alan would be at the ceremony and asked if Stella could stay, which she could until evening. The next day, Tina and Ellie began school. Alan welcomed them. Ellie noticed his formal outfit, which he wore because Lydia pressured him. He said he lived in the workers' area and needed nerve to come. Ellie liked his uniform. When Tina seemed off, she brushed it aside. Alan praised their uniforms and fixed Ellie's ribbon. She thanked him and was glad he stayed. Alan felt the same and looked forward to teaching. When Ellie asked why he stayed, Alan said there were many reasons. Sherry then called them in, and when Tina grew anxious, Alan reassured her he'd be there to watch her speech. After arriving at school, Ellie said goodbye to Alan and her grandmother. Lynn complimented Alan's uniform, but he politely asked her not to use his name that way to avoid confusion. Lissa joined them, irritated at being called Duchess, so Alan switched to ma'am until she insisted on less formality, saying she saw him like a son. When Alan said that might be misinterpreted, Lisa questioned him, prompting him to drop it. She mentioned Lydia had gone ahead to assign a palace mage, annoyed she'd missed the event. Alan guessed she wanted to see Lynn in uniform, but a maid said it wasn't the only reason. She'd film it for Lydia. Inside, Ellie comforted a nervous Tina. Rain began to fall, and Lynn, who disliked the cold, still preferred it over snow. Ellie asked if she was Duke Leinster's daughter, but Tina corrected her. Lynn was Lydia's sister, and mentioned she hated heat, which annoyed Lynn. Lynn advised Tina not to enter and offered her the speech, but Tina refused, saying Alan had given her hope and she wouldn't back out. Lissa told Alan the ceremony was starting. Karen, the student council vice president and a werewolf, unexpectedly stepped up as MC, saying she looked forward to working with everyone. Alan felt uneasy about monster clans, but a maid reassured him that the Leinster family supported him. Karen pointed to the sky as Lord Rod, managing the rain barrier, appeared. She introduced Tina, who nearly stumbled but was steadied by Karen. Tina introduced herself as a Howard noble who couldn't use magic until 13. After meeting someone 3 months ago who helped her awaken her powers, she now wanted to grow stronger and support others. She impressed everyone by casting ice midair, vowed to catch up to Alan, thanked the crowd, and left. Alan and Lisa applauded, and Lisa thought Lydia would be envious. Karen then welcomed Stella Howard, who praised the students for reaching the top school. She warned of harsh training but said it brought fast growth, sharing how she rose from the bottom to student council president. Lissa admired Stella's grit and wished Lydia had more of it, though her maid disagreed. Karen announced the director's speech, which Alan joked would bore Lisa. Just then, a maid whispered to Alan, who told Lisa that Lydia was in danger. At that moment, Lydia faced soldiers and coldly declared she would decide how they died. Lydia struck down the soldiers with swift precision, her fury blazing as she eliminated them all in moments. Burning with rage, she accused them of being unworthy to insult him, claiming they could not do so even in a million years. The knight captain called her a cursed woman and demanded if she knew what she was doing, while others urged her to stop. Ignoring them, she pointed her sword at Gerard, declaring him next. Alan arrived, ordering everyone to stop, and she questioned why he was there. He explained he had come urgently after receiving a message, confused about what had ruined the day. Before she could respond, the king appeared, demanding to know the cause of the chaos and directing his question at her. Lydia respectfully replied that this was not the right place to explain and that the king already knew why she preferred not to speak here. The king's son then intervened, claiming it began when his friends advised her not to feign naivety and to choose her companions wisely, but instead she had responded with violence. One of Gerard's friends stepped forward, criticizing him for damaging the royal guard's reputation, to which Gerard coldly told him to shut up. Prince Gerard dismissed the advice, claiming it should be given to his sister, not him, for he was the king's son, and Lydia had rejected his marriage proposals repeatedly. Turning to the king, he demanded her execution. Before judgment could be passed, Elaine stepped forward, asking to speak. Gerard mocked her low birth, but the king allowed her words. She thanked him and defended Lydia, reminding all that the Sword Maiden would never draw her blade without cause, a truth she knew from 4 years at her side. Since Lydia could not explain her reasons in that place, Elaine urged the king to trust her intentions. Gerard scoffed, insulting Elaine's failed career, common heritage, and Wolf clan blood, even implying Lydia had been tainted by her. Remaining composed, Elaine accepted insults aimed at herself but refused to let him stain Lydia's honor or her family's name, warning that his words were a weapon that could cut as deeply as any blade. The king cut in, ending the exchange with a decree. Gerard and Lydia were to serve a month of house arrest, and Gerard was forbidden from seeing the two again. Gerard protested to his father, claiming innocence and calling the others insolent, but the king remained stern as guards led him away. Later, Alan spoke with Lydia, acknowledging she had nearly drawn her sword in his defense but had chosen restraint, thanking her for it. Professor Gill soon arrived with his companions, praising Alan's composure and wit before the king, joking about the dangers of defiance. They left soon after. Meanwhile, Ellie the maid and Tina discuss Alan's sudden absence from the party, learning he was at the Linster residence and deciding to visit him at once, departing in a finely embroidered carriage. Elsewhere, Alan met with Lydia, admitting he had no idea what to say to her. She told him she hadn't wanted to leave but asked him to send her regards to Elijah. He asked if she could spend the night, and she scolded him for saying such things, explaining she only meant she couldn't stand being apart. When she pleaded for just one night, he refused, saying he had lessons to prepare for and might return later. As he turned to leave, she grabbed him, telling him not to face her and to listen. He could never escape her, and she didn't care about his status as a commoner. If anyone tried to separate them, she'd abandon her title and go abroad with him. She kicked him lightly, ordering him to come often so she could see him every day. Just then, his students arrived, saying they were worried about him. Tina noted it had been a long time. Lydia congratulated her on taking first place, and Tina credited Master Alan for her success. Linny declared she would defeat her in the next test, prompting an argument until Lydia calmed them and insisted Alan teach them all at her home, an offer he accepted. The two girls pushed each other to improve, and afterward, Alan met his sister Karen, apologizing for being busy. Karen mentioned hearing about his teaching job and the situation with Lydia, assuring it wasn't exactly worried but advising him to be cautious. He acknowledged her advice and praised her for handling the party well. Just then, Karen's friend Stella arrived, surprised to see them together. After introductions, Karen revealed Stella admired both him and Lydia. Karen then handed Alan an envelope from the academy director, who couldn't meet in person due to urgent matters. Curious why Karen was the messenger, Alan opened it to find a request for help. Security at the academy had been tightened, but the director feared Prince Gerard, who had moved on from Lydia to Linny despite being under house arrest. When Karen asked about the letter, Alan explained the director wanted him as a temporary teacher. The next morning, Stella gave him the attendance list for the day's class, and when he thanked her, she asked to join and attend his lessons. He said he knew she was busy, but Karen replied she was bound by official duties, prompting Stella to offer to guide him instead. Alan noticed her ribbon resembled Tina's, only in a different color, and she explained it was a memento from their mother, a symbol of pride as the Howard Duchess's heiress. Alan felt glad for their close bond, hoping they would grow and hone their skills together. Stella mentioned she had long corresponded with her sister, often writing that Professor Alan was quite mean. Later, the academy lesson began with Professor Alan introducing himself as their temporary teacher, a former student eager to work with them. The class, composed of top entrance exam passers, doubted what someone so young could teach, which irritated Tina. Alan announced he preferred practical magic over textbooks and began by reviewing spell tiers, asking for a volunteer. Linny answered that spells were classified into beginner, intermediate, and advanced, with the ultimate spells of the 4 great ducal houses, such as the Linster House, being rare and difficult to master. Alan confirmed Linny's answer was correct before asking if anyone could cast an advanced spell. Many claimed they could, and he chose Linny, assuring her he would raise a barrier for safety. She cast the spell, impressing him with its strength and potential danger. Tina then requested to try it, earning a scoff from Linny, who feared being outshone. Tina unleashed a sustained and powerful ice spell until Alan told her to stop, praising her and declaring her and Lenny the top students of their year, reminding them that power demands responsibility. Moving on, he introduced composite spells, demonstrating the possibilities and delighting the class, except Patricia, who challenged him to combine light and dark. He did so effortlessly, recalling Lydia had once urged him to make it for her amusement. When a boy with glasses asked about summoning creatures, Alan produced harmless magical animals for the class to touch. Ellie asked to try, summoning a beautiful cat with his help. He told them that strength comes from both body and mind, sharing how a girl once unable to perform even basic spells became the best swordswoman through hard work, determination, and will. When asked about ultimate spells, he admitted he could not use them. The class ended and Alan went to teach the girls elsewhere, catching a stumbling server by the waist just as Lydia entered and accused him of harassing her. Tina felt delighted, calling it a wonderful mood and savoring the peace after their lessons, while Ellie agreed, saying the tea made it even better and recalling how they once looked forward to bathing after training. Just then, Alan entered and to Tina's surprise, Linny was with him. When Tina demanded to know why, Linny clung to his arm and boldly declared they were on a date, which immediately stirred anger in the others. Alan tried to calm them, assuring it was only lunch, but his sister cut in, insisting they ignore the girls and leave. Frustrated, Alan reminded them all to be reasonable, warning that if they kept bickering like this, he would leave alone, and then suggested a trip to the hot springs so they could get along better. When asked where, he explained it was a spacious, well-known place that could be rented by the hour and was secretly popular among students, urging them not to overthink. They agreed, and the following morning they all went. There, Alan introduced them to Gil, his former junior in college and now the manager, who greeted them warmly and asked to simply be called Gil. Inside, the reception staff awaited, but the one in charge delivered bad news. The facilities had been broken for several days, making bathing impossible. Shock spread among everyone, including Gil himself, who immediately demanded to know how such a thing had happened. The person in charge admitted his failure to deliver the news on time and apologized, but Tina grew furious, upset that she had prepared her swimsuit just for this day, only for their plans to be ruined. Complaining that the one day they decided to swim and enjoy summer had to be cursed, she vented her frustration while Alan told everyone to return to their rooms and rest. Lydia suddenly declared that she would book a room for herself and Alan since they had often slept together, shocking everyone until Alan quickly clarified that nothing had ever happened between them. Just then, their older sister arrived, warmly welcoming the group before they all sat down for tea, chatting, bonding over girl talk, and wishing they could spend more time together. Estelle, the cat-eared girl, joined because she had grown restless, having stayed indoors for nearly a year, and the others happily welcomed her. Felicia, the shy and beautiful girl with glasses, quietly thought to herself how everyone had come to relax, yet it had all gone to waste. Hoping to fix things, the person in charge offered to use his abilities, but admitted that the real problem was the disappearance of the valuable spell stone used to regulate the temperature, a gift from the Duke himself. Since they had no idea when or why it vanished, they dared not tell him and simply called it a technical failure. Though he apologized again, the girls reassured him not to worry, even if it meant giving up the hot baths after coming all this way. Tina urged everyone to think together about the possible location of the spell stone, and Alan supported her, telling the group she was right. He then turned to Gil and asked for his opinion. Gil reasoned that if the stone had been taken deliberately, it would mean a theft, but the real question was why anyone would want to steal it. Tina immediately claimed it must be the work of market rivals trying to harm the inn by shutting down the baths. Lenny dismissed her suspicion as shallow, while Ellie pleaded with them not to argue. At that point, Felicia reminded them that the Green family had founded the inn to revive the region's economy and support the people, insisting there were no true competitors or enemies who would go so far as to harm it. Gil cut in, impressed by her knowledge, and one of their companions explained that Felicia came from a merchant family with access to plenty of information. Shifting the discussion, Tina then asked who could have stolen the spell stone and why. Alan suggested the thief might not be human at all, which made Jill recall an earlier incident when panic spread through the place due to a massive monster. One guest had reported hearing a dreadful scream and the beating of enormous wings. Though a search had turned up no creature, they had found feathers floating in the springs, so everyone had been warned to stay cautious. Lydia concluded that if it were a winged monster, it could indeed carry the spell stone, though its reason for targeting it remained a mystery. Alan admitted he didn't know much, but decided to patrol the area with Lydia since the spell stone emitted mana that could be tracked. The others wanted to join, yet he asked his sister Karen to stay behind with the girls and called Gil to accompany him so he could question him along the way. Later, Karen reassured Tina not to worry. Whatever monster appeared, Alan and Lydia could handle it, and with wind magic they could send their voices if needed. Tina, however, confessed her frustration at waiting idly, though Karen reminded her of the bond between Alan and Lydia, recalling how they had been close since the Royal Academy entrance exams where Lydia cut through the headmaster's advanced spells. Ellie admired her talent, but Linny, Lydia's sister, explained that Lydia hadn't always been exceptional, once only capable of primitive spells, but her meeting with Alan changed everything. To her, he was hope itself, and together they became inseparable. Meanwhile, Alan noticed a faint trace of mana on the trail, convinced they were heading the right way, but Lydia's silence betrayed her anger. When he asked, she denied it, and he gently told her that wanting to help someone in distress was nothing unusual. Lydia demanded to know if Alan had linked his mana with anyone else, warning that if the bond was stronger than theirs, she would cut and burn it until nothing remained. Alan insisted it wasn't what she thought. She pressed him on why he kept silent and why Tina couldn't use magic. He explained something inside her was blocking her spells, and though they hadn't solved it yet, he had already asked their teacher and the headmaster for help. Soon they reached a cave. Alan, clearly annoyed that Karen had led the others there, reminded her his wind spell had called only her. Karen smirked, saying she would never miss his voice and that Felicia was left at the inn. She then asked about the spellstone, and Alan told her it was inside. They entered and discovered baby griffins, which Lydia explained had been kept warm by the stolen stone. Tina nervously asked where the parents were, recalling how dangerous wild griffins could be. Alan confirmed they could easily destroy a small town. Karen warned him not to scare her and urged them to recover the stone quickly. Ellie pitied the creatures but reminded them the bats couldn't be used without the stone. Alan then said this was the perfect extra lesson and challenged them to find a way. Tina suggested freezing the cave to lower the temperature, but Linny dismissed her idea as lacking vision. As the temperature dropped, the creature clung tighter to the warmth. Ellie suggested making the place dark to retrieve it quietly, but Lainey warned that the young ones might panic and call their parents. Instead, she proposed heating the area with fire magic to lure them away from the stone. Karen agreed but reminded them the fires couldn't last forever. Thinking of her brother's words, that not everything should rely on magic, and sometimes hearts and minds work better, she searched for another way. Tina suggested offering the baby griffins a new spell stone, though fire magic wasn't her strength. The others promised to help, and Alan instructed them to focus their energy on a normal stone. Soon it radiated warmth, attracting the curious chick. Just then, its parents appeared and attacked, but their strikes were blocked. Alan and his cat Enko released a brilliant flash, sending the message that no harm was intended. Thanks to Enko, the great bird calmed and returned to its young. Alan reassured them while Gil fetched another stone from the storeroom. With the problem solved, the group enjoyed the hot springs in joy and relief. That night, everyone returned to their rooms, Felicia drifting into sleep after a brief dizziness. By morning, they were ready to depart, warmly thanked by the owners for restoring the springs. If you're enjoying the journey of this series, please hit that like and subscribe button and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss any updates. All of your support helps me to keep bringing more high-quality recaps.